What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Enter the CineVault. 825 Forest Road is the brand new supernatural horror thriller coming from director Stephen Cognetti, the writer and director of Hell House LLC. So this movie's a bit of a slow burn, but it really sets the mood and the tone and the atmosphere. So if you're really into those slow burn kind of psychological horror thrillers, I think this will be right up your alley. So the basic setup of this movie is a small family, I believe, moving from New York City into a small town, and the house that they buy and the town that they move into, they don't know is kind of haunted by this long-time curse. The curse began from a woman named Helen Foster who had a daughter, and her daughter was like viciously bullied in school and sadly ended up committing suicide. And this suicide kind of drove her into a rage. And in a town council meeting, she ends up not getting any type of help or anything that happened with that situation. She basically takes it out on the town council members and then killed herself. And this is what leads to the town now being cursed years and years and years later. So the movie follows a handful of characters, Chuck being the first, Maria, his wife, being the second, and his younger sister, Isabel, who moves in with them, is the third. And then I really like the structure of the movie because they take it and they break it up into 4 separate chapters. You have a chapter that follows Chuck, the second chapter follows Maria, the third chapter follows Isabel, and then the fourth chapter is all about Forest Road itself. Something I really liked about the chapter setup was you get into the first chapter and you see how the movie opens. When you get into chapter 2 and you begin to follow Maria, it then starts to go back to the beginning and show you things that happened already, but from a different perspective. So instead of seeing what you already saw, you now see it from the point of view of a character who kind of branched off and went off to experience different things. So that happens with chapter 2 and 3 with Isabel. So each chapter of the movie starts to go back and show you different things from different perspectives and things that you missed and different interactions between the entity that's haunting this family and what happened with each different character. So chapter 1 is basically kind of your setup for the backstory, learning about the town, learning about what happened, and getting a lot of the details about what went on in the town once this event took place. Then when you move on to chapters 2 and 3 and we start to follow Maria and Isabel, like I mentioned, we start to see things from their perspectives and see the kind of interactions that they dealt with. Another thing I like about this movie with the setup is, as much as it's a narrative movie, it does kind of sprinkle in bits and pieces of found footage style filmmaking that we all know from the whole Hell House series coming from Stephen Cognetti himself. So overall, this is very much a narrative film that has a story and has 3 parts broken up into 4 chapters, but we do get a little bit of hints here and there of some found footage, which I think was a nice touch. So after we get the first 3 chapters where we follow each individual main character, chapter 4 breaks into Forest Road itself. So throughout the movie, you hear all about 825 Forest Road, and it ends up being an address that is on current maps that cannot be found. So they have to kind of jump through some hoops to finally find where the address is, and by the end of the movie, they finally do locate it, which is where the end of the movie actually takes place. Now, when we follow all 4 chapters of the movie, each piece is tying into previous events that already happened. So they're really tying the story all together and bringing things full circle. So by the end of the movie, everything will make sense. Overall, I thought this was a really solid kind of supernatural thriller. It leans more into that than it does in horror, but there's horror elements in there. So it will kind of scratch that itch if you're a horror fan. I would recommend it. My rating would be about a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. I really like Cognetti's writing and directing style. This was right in my wheelhouse. I had a ton of fun with this movie. I definitely want to give it a rewatch to see if I pick up on other things that I might have missed in the first watch. But like I said, with the whole thing kind of being broken into 4 chapters and then coming back and tying everything together, you really get this satisfying full circle story. So there you have it. There's my review of 825 Forest Road coming from director and writer of Hell House LLC, Stephen Cognetti. So this movie is now on Shudder. I recommend heading over to Shudder and checking that out now. If you're into the supernatural or somewhat psychological thriller, I think this will be right in your wheelhouse. Once again, thank you guys so much for checking out my review of 825 Forest Road. If you like what you see here, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, don't forget, watch more movies.